So now that you've built the unit circle, let's summarize some things. So the unit circle means my radius is 1. So let's start with our values on the quadrants. So on your x and y axis. So this, if it's a radius of 1, that means you're going right 1, up 0. This one is going right and left 0, up 1. This one is left 1, up 0. And this one is right and left 0, down 1. Then let's look at our patterns going on. So notice that if I'm talking about these triangles that we used in class, kind of making that bow tie, that they have the same coordinates. The only difference is the sign, S-I-G-N. And we get that by, in your first quadrant, x and y are both positive. Second quadrant, x is negative, y is positive. Third quadrant, they're both negative. Fourth quadrant, you are x values positive, y values negative. And so if you notice, all the coordinates in each of these quadrants match those properties. But everything associated with each bow tie has the same coordinates. So I have that blue one, then I have this red one I'm drawing right now, very loosely, whoops. And then my green one at these pi's over 6's. Alright, notice that bow tie we are making with the x-axis. So now let's look at the radians in particular. So notice with this green one, these all have to do with a denominator of pi over 6. The red ones have to do with denominators, a little hard to see right there, of pi's over 4. And then my blue ones all have denominators, once again, look at your paper, it's a little easier to see, of pi over 3's. These are really going to help us because we're going to memorize this whole thing. And believe it or not, you're going to be able to fill in this whole thing in less than 5 minutes. Believe it or not, you will be, in the next couple of weeks, able to do that. And this makes a whole lot of evaluating so much faster. So critical for us to memorize. Alright, so let's look at some other patterns on here. Alright, let's look at the fractions. Notice all of my fractions are over 2. Look at your numerators. I have 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. What happens below? Now I go 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. How can I remember that it flips? Is remember your bow ties. So if I look at, say, this bow tie right here, when I reflect that, these should have the same x and y values. The only difference is the signs, S-I-G-N. And then what else do I see in all of these numerators? In the numerators, I see square root. But Miss Vance, I don't see the square root over 1. Right, but the square root of 1 is 1. So we have square roots in all of the tops. And once again, the only difference between all my different quadrants are my pluses and minuses. So everything in the first quadrant is plus plus. Second quadrant is minus plus. Third quadrant, both negative. And fourth quadrant is positive, negative. All right, and I can look at each of those coordinates and see that that is true. Next, let's talk about angles. So I'm going to go around and do degrees first. So the first thing I'm going to do is count in 30s, which is really like counting in 3's and adding a 0. So I have 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240, 270, 300, 330, 360. So I would go around and fill in all of my 30 degrees. Then I go and do groups of 45. 45, 90, which I already had, 135, 180, which I already had, 225, 270, 315, 360. Now let's look at radians. Notice, closest to the y-axis, I have pi's over 3. Then, in between, I have pi's over 4. Then, I have pi's over 6. So I would go around and put pi's over 3, pi's over 4, pi's over 6 everywhere that I see them. And now let's look and see patterns in the numerator. In the first quadrant, notice all of them have a 1 pi. In the second quadrant, notice they are 1 less than the denominator. So 3 minus 1 is 2, 4 minus 1 is 3, 6 minus 1 is 5. That's because we go all the way to pi and then go back by pi over 6, pi over 4, or pi over 3, which will make more sense when we talk about reference triangles. Then, if you look in quadrant 3, everything is 1 more than the denominator. So 6 plus 1 is 7, 4 plus 1 is 5, 3 plus 1 is 4. Now, the last one is a little weird. It's going to be 2 times your denominator minus 1, because it's like going all the way to 2 pi and then going backwards by 1. So 3 times 2 is 6, minus 1 is 5. 2 times 4 is 8, minus 1 is 7. 6 times 2 is 12, minus 1 is 11. Alright, so here I have a blank unit circle, and you're going to get a lot of practice of me asking you to try filling this in 5 minutes, alright? I know you still don't believe that you're going to be able to do this. So, let me do my degrees first. So we said we're going to do 0 degrees, and we're going to go by 30s first. So I have 30, 60, and I'm writing with the stylus, so this is a little more painful. 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240, 270, 300, 330, I lost my little dot here, and 360. Make sure to put those degrees. Now I'm going to do the 45. So I have 45 degrees, 90, I have 135, 180, 225, 270, and 315. That wasn't so bad, was it? All right, let's do our radians. So we have pi's over 3 are always going to be close to the y-axis. Pi's over 4 are in the middle. And you have nice blank unit circles where you have spots to write this in. And then our pi over 6s are the closest to the x-axis. And now I need to go fill in my numerators. So in the first quadrant, they're all 1. Second quadrant, I subtract 1 from the denominator. Third quadrant, I add 1 to the denominator. Last quadrant, I'm going to multiply by 2 and subtract 1. So that would be 11, 7, and 5. Once you do these a lot, you get in the habit of it. Don't forget our quadrant angles. So 90 would be pi over 2, 180 is pi, and then we have 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. Those always get left off. Don't forget them. All right, now I just have my coordinates everywhere. All right, so my coordinates, we go 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, all over 2, square root of the top. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, all over 2, square root of the top. Remember, when we go below the x-axis, we flip. 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. All over 2, square root of the top. I went in the wrong order there. And then still flipped. 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, all over 2, square root of the top. Now I need to add my signs, S-I-G-N. Once again, you have a nice one where you're just filling in the blanks. All right. So in the first quadrant, everything is positive, so I don't need to do anything. Second quadrant, x values are negative. Third quadrant, everything is negative. Fourth quadrant, y is negative. And all I have left is to fill in my quadrant angles. So I have 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 1. Looking at my time, I did that in 4 minutes and 12 seconds, and that's with explaining things to you. So you can totally do this in 5 minutes. The last thing we need to know is what is the entire point of this whole thing? Is that with those right triangles that we did in our investigation, the x value corresponds with cosine, and our y value corresponds with sine. And then we're going to get tangent by doing sine over cosine. Now I could think of these all in terms of x and y, so then tangent is y over x. But I really encourage you to think of it as sine over cosine, because that will help us so much in the future. So all we're going to do on this bottom part, because we really already investigated the top, is that cosine is the x-coordinate of my point on the unit circle. Sine is the y-coordinate on my unit circle, and tangent is the ratio of y over x, or sine over cosine. Notice I have to have a theta there. Don't leave off theta.